I was talking to some friends from high school. I was in my 20s, and someone we had known, they were strung out on dope. And I was talking shit. I was like, how could you do that to your kids?
Yeah.
I could never do that. And fast forward 10 years, and I was full, like, drinking daily, abusing prescription medications, and strung out on meth. Thank God for my parents. Like, they came and took the kids. They said the kids are going to stay with us for a while. Finally, in December, my parents and my family, like, arranged for an intervention. And they all came to my house. They pleaded with me to get help. So my best thinking is, like, I'll go after the holidays, and that's the holidays. I don't even remember those holidays.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to leave my kids during the holidays when I wasn't even seeing them daily.
Welcome to Into Action, brought to you by Touchstone Recovery Center. This week we have Sarah Ellebracht. Sarah has worked at Touchstone now for 2 years, as of 2 weeks ago. Sarah is a woman in recovery. She's a friend of mine. I'm good friends with her husband, Kenny, and I'm happy to have her on. So, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Glad you finally came on. I've asked her 5 times, and the 5th time's a charm, I guess. So,
yeah.
Well, as you know, like, typically we talk about the way that addiction has impacted our life, and whether it's, our families impacting us when we're kids, or the way that we navigated our own addiction. So I don't know much about when you were younger, when you were a kid. What were your experiences like with alcoholism and addiction, like growing up?
Well, overall, like, when I sit back and look at the big picture, like, I had a great childhood. I had 2 parents that were always there for me. We lived upper middle class. They always provided. It was a safe home. Mm-hmm. I didn't have the experience of, like, parents using or drinking. Mm-hmm. So really, like, not even aunts and uncles or anything like that. Like, it was not something that was always around. Really? So really it came about, like, through staying at friends' houses and partying and whatnot like that. But I really didn't grow up, like, learning or thinking that was normal.
Huh.
Yeah.
That's, I know that's not, well, I guess growing up without it around is considered to be, like, the right way, right? But
right.
So many people that we work with and that we deal with on a day-to-day here at work, that's not their experience.
Right.
We see it at a really young age and often, and that, like, becomes our normal. So that sounds like you did have a really good childhood.
Yeah, and that, to be honest, like, the more people I meet in recovery and to hear their experiences growing up, it really proves to me how good I had it.
Yeah, for sure. I think I had it really good too. I have good parents. I know that they, used alcohol quite a bit when I was growing up, and to excess in some cases, in a lot of cases. And, I don't know if that impacted me or, like, influenced the way that I used alcohol. Mm-hmm. It just made me associate, like, fun with booze, like,
yeah.
If I'm going to party and have a good time with my friends, obviously I need to drink out of that bottle because that's what I've always, seen people do. But so you said that you started using or hanging around people that were using at friends' house. So I'm assuming that's, like, high school age?
Well, no. I like the friends
Younger?
I was hanging out with, really, like, popular crowd, right? So the friends I was hanging out with, we would drink starting in junior high.
Okay.
And looking back now, like, I can see that I immediately liked the way I felt. Mm-hmm. A lot of times there's mental health mixed in with addiction. And I know for me, like, not wanting to feel my feelings for whatever reason that might be,
sure.
That was, like, that felt the best to me, was not feeling,
Yeah, I think that's normal. Mm-hmm. We're self-medicating, right?
Right.
So in junior high, you started drinking. did it progress? Like, what did high school look like?
High school was, I stressed my parents out a lot. You know, my sister, I have an older sister. She really didn't go out much, and if she did, she wasn't crazy. You know, I lied all the time because they tried to do their part by giving me curfews or wanting to make sure there was parents wherever I was going, so I would lie and really end up at some party out in the country or whatever, right? So.
And where was this? Where did you grow
in
up?
Chowchilla. Okay. So it's a small like ag town.
Yeah.
But
that's like
so
where
the
I grew
parties
up.
were out in the country, yeah. So I lied a lot. I went out. I was always at places on the weekends that I never reported I would be. And it was full of drinking. I mean, it wasn't constant to where it got into like schoolwork or athletics or anything like that. But when the weekends came, I went all out.
Found a way to let your guard down.
Right. Yeah.
Have a good time. Yeah. It's funny how, I mean, I grew up in a similar town, but we used to find the weirdest places to like get away from parents and drink.
Yeah.
Like we had these places. One of them was called Cutfoot, and it was like in the middle of a field, a ditch in the middle of a field. There was nothing around. I don't know how we came up with that spot.
Yeah.
And then there was like the oak tree and the water tower and all these like remote spots where we would all mob on the weekend or on a weeknight and like, just cause hell and get really drunk, and then we'd all drive home.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Partying in the middle of a cornfield. Like it's just
brilliant.
Yeah, but driving home for sure, that was, one time I had hit like, I don't know what I ran over, who knows, but I drove the car home on a flat tire, so the rim's completely messed up, and my dad's like, what happened? And I think I said I hit the curb or something, and he's like, no, I can see the exact dent where you actually hit something.
Yeah.
He knew I would not give up. Like, I just kept going with the lie. Like, I just kept going deeper and deeper, and looking back, I'm like, it's so ridiculous and so dangerous,
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. We used to not get in very much trouble for driving drunk, and I mean, unless obviously something really bad happened. But I mean, nowadays they don't mess around.
Yeah.
You get thrown in jail, you get a big fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's no joke, which is a good thing. I mean, driving drunk, I have friends who have killed people, and I know people who've lost loved ones because of it. So I'm glad I was never a part of like an accident or anything like that, but I'm just lucky, just lucky that I wasn't.
Yeah, me too.
So you continued to drink in high school. Did drugs ever come into the picture, like marijuana, cocaine?
I never
anything like
got
that?
into marijuana. When I got out of high school, I did try to go to college. Like, I came to Fresno for a little over a year. I started at Fresno City. I did a few different things. I went to school for court reporting. I ended up moving back home and working as a waitress at one of the restaurants in Chowchilla, and cocaine entered the scene then.
It's funny
how I was
how
about 19.
It's like cocaine in restaurants, right?
Yeah.
I worked at a few also, and it seemed like every waiter or waitress was doing cocaine.
Yeah.
It was in the 90s, but
what's alarming to me is my willingness to try anything, because it's my first night working there, and I'm working with some friends, and I go back in the kitchen area, and there's cocaine, and I'm told that's for you, and I don't even ask questions like, who did it come from?
Yeah.
What is it? Like anything,
Yeah.
I just do it, and I really enjoyed the feeling from it. So
yep.
it became so my pride and ego, like when I got into my addiction, it almost killed me, but it also inhibited me from being willing to ask people for drugs. Like, I didn't want to be the person that was asking for drugs. So I only did drugs when it was around, but when I was at work, it was around a lot.
Yeah.
So,
So did it become like a daily habit at that time when you were, so I'm assuming you were 19, 20.
Right.
You're working.
So it was like 4 to 5 days a week. Anytime I was working, so 4 to 5 days a week. I was dating someone that hated drugs in general.
So you hit it?
Yeah. I'm like, I'm not high, I'm so high.
Yeah.
But yeah.
It's not easy to hard. It's not easy to hide stimulants.
Yeah. No, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just, I lost a lot of weight, I could have, it didn't take me to my bottom. Like, I could have gone south really fast. And I ended up about a year into that, I got pregnant with my daughter.
Oh, cool.
So, like being a mom and I did things a little backwards. I had the dream of marriage and successful like home life and stuff like that. But I got pregnant with my daughter, and being a mom was very important to me.
Sure.
A lot of times I see an addiction, like certain things that are very important to us, like that can be a Band-Aid for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
But, if the addiction it goes untreated, it usually comes back.
Sure.
So being a mom and raising my kids, that really, I stayed put. Like I was not drinking. I would drink like maybe a couple times a year, but no drinking or no drugging or anything like that for about 7 years.
Okay.
I did well.
Got it. So when you were using cocaine, like before you got pregnant, did you typically drink with it, or was?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It started with alcohol always,
Yeah, they always go hand in hand. It just seems like Juan was on last month, and I know I could relate to his story a lot because he said pretty much every time he would drink, then he'd start doing cocaine. And I never really separated the two when I was using either. Mm-hmm. If I was drinking, I'd usually do some type of stimulant. It was usually cocaine.
Right. But, yeah, and you let your guard down.
Yeah,
but
for sure.
One of the best metaphors I have for that is I remember going out with my girlfriends. It's wintertime, and they're like, why are you going to wear a tank top? It's freezing. I said, I'm going to be drunk. I won't even feel how cold I am. It's the same thing. Like, that's when we start asking for drugs.
Yep.
We don't care because we're...
Yeah, we start calling the person we promised we'd never call again.
Mm-hmm, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you went 7 years without using, just occasionally drinking, just being a mom.
Yeah.
And then as you, obviously you got back into it at some point. What did that look like?
So I feel like I went into very gradually into this depression. And
untreated addiction.
Yeah, it was, I don't know, I just felt like daily I was getting lower and lower. I wanted to, I became a recluse. I never wanted to go out anymore. When I say out, I mean to see my family or extended family, anything. I just wanted to stay in.
Yeah.
And I was very depressed because, my relationship status wasn't what I wanted, or didn't meet my expectations, my dream, whatever.
Sure.
That, not everyone's dreams come true, right? But for whatever reason, to me, that was a huge impact. I wasn't living in the house I wanted to live in. I didn't have the status that I always wanted. And that had such a huge effect on me. And I also religiously, God is my higher power. And I had built a huge resentment against him. Yeah. So I felt like I was being punished. I was never going to get the life I wanted. And I started drinking, day drinking, drinking every day after work. I started taking alcohol to work. I worked at a state prison, so that's a felony, Yeah. And then I went to a doctor, got prescribed anxiety medication.
Xanax or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I quickly started mixing the two.
That's blackout medicine.
Yeah. I regret it, but there's a Christmas that I don't even remember. I don't know what I got my kids for Christmas. I'm sure my parents saved the day, and handled it, but I do not remember Christmas of 2018. I just don't.
Well, you're not the only one. And I know during the holidays, the holidays are coming up for us, and during the holidays was one of the worst times of the year for me because you had to pretend, and I had to pretend like I had my shit together, and I didn't for a long time.
Yeah.
And then, it was tough to go those few weeks away from either work or school or whatever we were doing at that time. Because, for me, like I was away from my connect, and it was hard for me to get what I needed to stay well. And like, those were really rough times, the holiday season. And usually for a lot of people, this was true for me before I got into like opiates, was like, all your buddies come home from wherever they live now, from out of town or from college. And we'd all go get just blackout drunk at the bars and get into all kinds of trouble.
Yeah.
The holidays were, I think that's probably when I got myself in the most trouble.
Yeah.
Is like Thanksgiving and Christmas.
Yeah. Yeah. It's common for a lot of people, especially the small towns for some reason.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're a bunch of hicks. We like to go get drunk.
I remember I was just sharing with someone that I was talking to some friends from high school. I was in my 20s, and someone we had known, they were strung out on dope. And I was talking shit. I was like, how could you do that to your kids?
Yeah.
I could never do that. And fast forward 10 years, and I was full, like, drinking daily, abusing prescription medications, and strung out on meth.
Yeah.
I used meth daily for 2 years.
Every day.
I started at age 30, I think, or 31. And it took me, to me, that's fast. It took me down fast.
Yeah, for sure.
2 years.
Meth
It's
does.
not, I thank God for my parents. Like, they came and took the kids, they said the kids are going to stay with us for a while. And I'm just like, I tried to put up a fight because I'm in denial that I'm a drug addict or that it's that bad. And I isolated in my house by myself for like 2 months, it seems like. I think for maybe like the end of October all the way up to early December.
Were you working?
I kept calling in. So I still had my job at the prison, but I was calling in more than I was showing up. So that's when I was like really bad. I wouldn't even leave my house, Finally in December, my parents and my family like arranged for an intervention. And they all came to my house. They pleaded with me to get help, So my best thinking is like, I'll go after the holidays, and that's the holidays. I don't even remember those holidays,
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not going to leave my kids during the holidays when I wasn't even seeing them daily.
Yeah. It's hard to accept. I think all of us, our first reaction when someone says you need to go get help is F you.
Yeah.
I'm fine.
Well, so in my sick mind, like I know during those couple of months that I isolated, I was like I said, I had become resentful with God, and I was so mad because no one was coming to help me or check on me. But anytime someone offered me help with my family, I would say no.
Yeah.
That's when I say my pride and ego almost killed me.
Yeah.
Like, you need help.
Ways.
No, I don't. Like, get away,
Yep.
Yeah.
So you ended up going to treatment.
In January of 19.
Okay. January of 19. Where'd you go?
I went to First Steps for 45 days.
Okay.
I went for my family, and I went to get off the drugs because alcohol wasn't my problem.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We hear that all the time, don't we?
Yeah.
Alcohol is not my problem. It's just the cocaine, or it's just the methamphetamines. Yeah. It sucks how we have to watch people like learn the hard way on that one.
Right.
Because, some people actually take suggestion and, they change the behavior, but the ones that don't, usually the ones that hold on to alcohol, I'm trying to think of someone who this doesn't apply to, and I can't.
Yeah.
But the ones that hold on to it usually end up back.
Yeah, they have to. You just know they have to see it for themselves.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. So you went to First Steps. You were an inpatient for 45 days? Oh, that's a long time. That's cool that they were able to keep you that long.
Well, I did inpatient. I stayed in their house up the hill for 45 days.
So inpatient and PHP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think once I was actually PHP status, I was just staying in their house up there.
Mm-hmm.
That was only for like 7 days or something.
Okay.
So that was, so when I did learn some things, obviously I wasn't ready to stop. But I did learn, it's crazy that I didn't realize this, but I was in group one day and I had finally learned that I was putting drugs before my kids. And I was like adamant, like the whole like first 20 days. I'm like, I never did that. I never did that. And then finally this counselor like went face to face with me. I went down this checklist and she's like, yes, you did. It's literally on the paper. And so that was shocking to me, believe it or not. Like,
I struggle with that too. Like, I mean, I didn't have kids when I was in my addiction. And I think sometimes like, because I mean, we have a lot of the people that come through Touchstone, they have kids and they're struggling with alcohol or drugs or both. And I always think to myself, like, if I would have had my kids earlier, would I have stopped? The answer is no. Yeah. Like I know the answer is no. I didn't stop for anything. Like I wouldn't stop if I got caught red-handed. I wouldn't stop if I had legal like consequences. I didn't stop because I lost my job. I didn't stop because my parents were fed up and like didn't want to talk to me. There, like nothing made me stop. Right. So, like, I understand like because I sometimes I trick myself and I think I would have stopped.
Right.
Like I wouldn't do that to my kids. That's bullshit. Right. When you're in your addiction, you don't like you're not trying to neglect your kids. It's just it happens. It's like one of the it's one of the effects that we have in active addiction.
Yeah. So I came to terms with that, that is, I mean, I did learn a few things, but I just wasn't ready. So straight out of, as soon as my parents picked me up, I mean, I picked up a bottle of vodka, like probably within the first couple days.
Yeah.
My dad, I was staying with my parents. So while I was at inpatient, I had neglected paying all my bills and everything. So while I was at inpatient, my dad moved everything into a storage unit for me. And then I moved in with my parents. So I came out of inpatient to my parents' house. My dad's like, why do you have this? It was like in my purse because he moved my purse and it was really heavy. So he looked in it and it was a bottle of vodka. I'm like, it's fine. I'm fine. Totally rude and just giving him attitude. Like, how dare you question me? You know, like
alcohol wasn't my problem.
I used meth. I started using meth again, like within probably 3 weeks. It wasn't like as full blown.
You're trying to hide it.
It would have. Yeah, it would have gotten there, but as bad as it was, it used to be, it would have gotten there. No doubt. But my mom had it. She'd put her foot down. She's like, your kids are in this house. Like, you got to get out. My dad, he was like the last one it was hard for him to like be like my mom was. He didn't want to kick me out. Yeah. I know it hurt him when he finally came to terms and had to say it to me, like, you got to leave.
Yeah.
I know that was hard for him because I could just tell. So, anyway, I ended up going to my time. I got a scholarship there. They had started for outpatient. Scotty had started. He started doing age-specific groups. So, like for 30 and over, he wanted that to be the PMIOP group, and he's like, "Yeah, tell her she can start coming. The night groups is starting next week." And thank God for that. I mean, I stayed at my time for 8 months.
That's cool.
8 months. I drove from Chowchilla to Fresno. I didn't make it in IOP. I graduated up to PHP for a little bit because I couldn't stop using. So
yeah.
But I stayed in PHP for 5 months and did IOP for 3. So they kept me for a long time, and I'm grateful because I learned a lot there, you know.
Yeah. Met a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, the recovery community in Fresno was amazing. I met so many friends there, and just the staff, like the friends that I met there, like they're some of my best friends today, you know. Yeah, including my husband.
Yeah.
You know, it's just I'm blessed for that experience. I still would have some slips with alcohol though. I was sober more days than I was not, from 19 to my sobriety date in 2021.
Okay.
But I would have some slips with alcohol. Sometimes they would last like a few days, and then I'd stop, or you know. But for whatever reason, like I was untreated with. What I mean by that is like no step work. I still had a thinking problem.
Yeah.
My way of thinking was still wrong. I still had a slew of resentments that like kept me bitter and angry, and the reason I was where I was in life was because of everybody else's decisions, you know, and
Sure.
not mine. And so I just kept, every time I got like so uncomfortable in my own head, I would go, you know, buy a pint or something, you know.
Yeah.
And I had started praying again, and I prayed, you know, I was asking like, am I really just that bad of a person that I can just keep lying to everybody I love and it doesn't affect me? Like, why do I not feel bad? And like, I feel like he answered my prayers, because like shortly after that, I went into the deepest depression I'd ever been in. But like, it was a good thing because I needed to change, you know?
Yeah.
I was desperate for change. So I had prayed to God, you know, I promised to try to live his will. I said I'd get honest with my alumni group, you know, about my sobriety date. I promised to do everything I could to do it right. And that's when I chose to stop drinking once and for all. And that was February 2nd of 2021. I think it was the next couple of days, I did go to my alumni group and I was honest about my sobriety date. I mean, I spoke at a speaker meeting at Fresno Fellowship, a Saturday night speaker meeting. It's a huge meeting.
Yeah.
When I supposedly had like a year and 3 months. And
And
I
you
didn't.
had-
No. I don't know how much time I had. It was, you know.
Not
So
long.
I was a liar, you know.
I did that same stuff. Like, you know, I think a lot of us do when we first are trying. Like, once we started like telling the truth and admitting, hey, I slipped up, or like actually telling our sobriety date, that's when the change actually happens, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, honesty is a big thing for me in my recovery, and that started with like being honest about how weak I was, and like how I don't have my shit together, and about the mistakes that I just made.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's a big red flag that we see a lot working in treatment, is like these little tiny lies, like the little things. You catch them like all the time.
Right.
And it still amazes me. Maybe it's because I look like a square or something, but like it amazes me like how a lot of the guys in the sober living, or not a lot, but sometimes a guy in the sober livings, or a client will like try to tell me that some dumb excuse, like, you know, I was dirty on that drug test because I found a baggie and it must have got on my skin, or
I've heard that one.
you know, like all these, I just know, I don't have to like point it out, but I just know he's not ready.
Yeah.
You know, that person's not ready. They can't be honest yet. So, you know, give them time, pray for them, give them some love. Maybe they'll be ready in a week or two.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I was going to ask you that when you said you were going to meetings, but you still kind of had a slip every now and again. I was going to ask if you admitted it.
Yeah. No.
Well, once you did, it seems like it's worked out pretty damn well.
Yeah.
You know?
I mean, well, I didn't start. So I work in an AA program. I mean, things went well. Like I said, I was honest with everyone. I started going to more meetings again, because that was like when COVID was bad. And the kids were homeschooled for the time being.
Sure.
And, I wasn't going to meetings very often. So I started going to meetings again, hanging out with my girlfriends that are in recovery. And I was really on it, but I wasn't I didn't have a sponsor.
Yeah.
And I wasn't working any kind of 12-step to better myself and better my way of thinking. But I did that for 10 months,
I think you started working the steps when we started working together, right?
Yeah.
So I remember you got a sponsor and then you started working the steps while you were at Touchstone.
Yeah. I mean, so I feel like I was blessed, because I was honestly, I'm not perfect at it, but I was honestly trying to do what God wants me to do with my life. So that guided me. I feel like I was actually guided to be where I was at that time. Meeting all of you and meeting Alan, who suggested my sponsor. I had no idea who she was, but Alan had known a little bit about me, and he knew Gina very well.
Sure.
So he suggested that I call her. So this is 10 months into my sobriety.
Yeah.
I'm starting to get restless and irritable, and
Yep.
So I call her, and she asked me some questions, and I started working with her, and it's she was the best fit for me. She was our stories are so similar, but she had 10 years of sobriety on me. But and
Does she have a sponsor?
She has a sponsor. Yeah.
It's important.
Yeah. I mean, she has a sponsor that has a sponsor, and she, I don't know, she just put so much love into me, and just really wanted me to do well for me and my kids,
Yep.
And I was amazed at how working the steps could really help me, because I never thought taking ownership for where I was in life or some of the feelings, I never even knew that I didn't have to feel the way I was feeling. I didn't realize holding on to really old resentments was gonna, bring me down later on into my adulthood,
Yeah.
Learning to live in acceptance too is just, it's a whole new level of happiness.
Sure.
Yeah.
I think it's really, how do I say this without getting myself in trouble? When you work a program and you've gone through the steps and you live it, you are in a program of recovery, specifically the 12-step program, I think we communicate differently, and then we're able to take ownership of our side of the street pretty quickly, and I mean, sometimes it takes longer than it should, but usually we get there and we're you know what, I did this wrong. And during that interaction that we just had, I messed up, and this is why. And, talking to someone that takes ownership of their mistakes, it's a relief, man.
Yeah,
especially in a work environment where, sometimes people are pretty opinionated, and we have we have an agenda and we have things that we need to get done. But just working with a bunch of people, I think that's why we do such a good job here of we just don't have staff turnover, and
Right.
we all show up to work every day, and we care. And it's because the vast majority of us, over 90% of us, are working a program, and it just makes it that much easier to communicate. When a person isn't, the conversation's different, it changes. And then I like what you said about acceptance. I also feel in addition to that, gratitude, just coming from a place of gratitude and knowing all the things that we have today that we should be thankful for.
Right.
Those are important things.
Yeah.
And all these wants that we have, I want this, I want that. That's just getting in the way,
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of times I just feel having gratitude is really important. And at least for me, it kind of checks me sometimes, because I'll start having all these wants and needs, and ambitions. And then I just remember, dude, just remember how bad you had it?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
you should be happy right now.
Yeah. When I first got sober, it was February of 2021. I was still feeling kind of shitty, like down in the dumps, still kind of irritable, but feeling positive for the change that I knew was going to happen, you know. When I was thinking one day, or maybe I read something, I don't know, but all I know is that I was like, I should be grateful that I know, I was applying for jobs everywhere and I couldn't get one. So I was just like really down in the dumps. And I was like, I should be grateful. Like my parents, I'm living at their house, but they don't have to let me live there, you know. They're not asking me for money. Like I should be grateful. I have so many things. I know I want a job. I want to be a productive member of society, but it's just not my time right now, you know?
Sure.
So when I started having like an attitude of gratitude, I don't know, it just got better for me.
And you probably got a job shortly thereafter, I would think.
It took some time, but I started like part-time driving for Touchstone like a few months later. So
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
I remember that. You were our first official driver, I think.
And cramming like 4 full-size men in my little Chevy Cruze. That was funny.
Yeah. I think we'd probably get in trouble for that these days. Now we are about to hire our 4th. You started a trend. Mm-hmm. That's great. So, I mean, you've already mentioned, but I like to hear like how you stay sober today. You've kind of told us, like you work a program, you go to meetings, you have a sponsor. How else do you stay sober? Like, is there anything else that you have in your routine that is like essential?
Well, I just want to say that it's easy, like especially a parent with no matter what age their kids are, you can get busy with the life, mm-hmm. you know, the life responsibilities that can potentially take you away from your recovery. That also needs to have attention daily, if not multiple times a day. So if I ever get taken away from going to meetings, if my meeting attendance gets low for like a couple weeks straight, I feel it. I can get into being discontent and irritable again, you know, because I still have an alcoholic brain. And I get reminded like, Sarah, you still need meetings. Like you still need to go see your recovery community and hear in the meetings, or tell the newcomer why you're there, or hear from the newcomer why you don't want to go back to that spot, you know? Mm-hmm. So I do have to stay connected. I feel like for me, I'm lucky because working here only and not working a program, that won't do it for me.
Yeah, me neither.
But working here helps. Because my coworkers, like you said, you guys are working in recovery too. You have your 12-step program. Like you guys are my friends. So it's just, I feel like God like surrounded me with like this recovery bubble,
sure.
you know, where I can get my fill almost every day, you know. If I feel like I need more, you know, I do what I can. Like when I say we, I mean me and Kenny, like we'll speak whenever we've been asked, you know. Mm-hmm. That helps too, like sharing how bad it was, so that I don't forget.
Yep.
Yeah. I just do what I can.
Okay.
You know.
Yeah. What advice would you give to someone who is looking for a change, like, and is stuck in their addiction?
So I feel like a lot of the excuses, or not excuses, but reasons that someone...
My dad used to tell me there's no difference between a reason and an excuse.
Oh, okay. Well,
so
it
just
sounded
do it.
Better.
That's what he'd say. Yeah.
Well, a lot of reasons I've heard for, like saying I can't commit to that, or, you know, I can't make this change because it's usually something with their home life or home responsibilities.
Yeah. Other priorities.
Yeah. So, but there's a chapter in the AA book that anyone can relate to, no matter what program you work, and it's the family afterwards. And in that chapter, it talks about how our families might, they're not going to understand why they've been waiting for us to get sober. And now that we're sober, we're spending less time at home and more time with our new family, which is our recovery community, But the reason for that is because we have to. Like, we have to stay connected to our recovery and spend more time there, or otherwise we'll go back to drinking.
Sure.
So I feel like if everybody read that and understood it, or read it to their family members and they understood it, then the support would be there, And a lot of the reasons we have for not committing to change could really just not be an issue.
Yeah, it's a good point. It's like a vicious circle. A lot of people won't commit to detox or residential or even therapy, because they don't. I can't do that. I have to watch my kid,
right.
Or I have a dog, or my mom needs my help at she's 90 and she needs my help, and
right.
I always think you're no good to them right now. You're no good to them. As a matter of fact, you're probably harmful to them.
Yeah.
I know I was.
Right.
When I was running amok, no one wanted to be around me. Hell, I didn't even want to be around me.
Right.
So.
There's something else I just remembered, I always believed, or I was certain, everything seemed impossible. Any type of change seemed impossible. It was impossible for me to get out of the, wanting drugs or not wanting to feel my feelings. It was impossible for me to have a happy life that I wanted. It was impossible for me to be a woman of God. It was just, all of that seemed impossible. I had already ruined it all. And now that I'm in recovery, and nothing feels impossible. Whatever battles I have, I can voice it to those that I have in my life, and I don't go through anything alone anymore.
Yep. Yeah, we don't have to. Well, thank you for being on this month. I'm glad you finally came on.
Me
You have a
too.
really touching story, and I know I've told you this before, but the family here would not even be close to the same without you, and we love you.
Thank you, Nolan.
Thanks, Sarah.